Now, I would like to add a couple more words about me, and not to justify myself, but to add another dimension to this intervention. So, by vocation and training, I'm a social scientist. So I like to look at how humans do things in a rigorous way. Now, the things that I'm interested in are things related to technologies, to communication technologies initially, but more recently I became more interested in technology writ large. So I'm interested in the regularities that emerge in the individual human and human group interactions with technologies. The ways in which technologies shape our abilities, shape our needs, shape our ideas, while at the same time we design those technologies to help us do those same things. I see the relationship between humans and technology as a circular relationship, because I think technology to be an extension, using the term McLuhan used, an extension of man, right? So, my perspective as social scientist is that there's this circular relationship between humans and technology. And technology is part of us as much as we are part of it, in the sense that we invented it. And I come to this topic of the future nature of artificial intelligent agents, and if they will be in a certain way, and if they could be desiring entities, right? From this perspective, where I think that there's an intrinsic and tight connection between the human agent and anything that technological, because this is a gathering of scholars interested in religion and religious studies and religious thought. I will take the liberty to call this relationship a demiurgic relationship. So the relationship between humans and technology is a demiurgic relationship, where the demiurgus is man, humans. However, it's not at the same time a subservient relationship. When humans alienate, create technologies, they alienate themselves in these technologies. They put themselves into it. So I don't take this, more traditional religious perspective that the creator is infinitely superior and incorporates the creature. I think that for humans and their technology is more kind of dual relationship, where we put ourselves into it, and that becomes part of us at the same time, while we create this thing. Now, if that is so, if you are willing to accept this premise, or let's just say, I beg of you to accept this premise as the bottom line of my conversation, then I want to ask these questions in this order, right? First of all, and you'll probably guess as much, the first question should be, what is AI, and how is AI, an artificial intelligent agent, different from a computer, right? And by just saying that technology is part of humans and humans are part of technology, you kind of start kind of asking, it's like, what exactly is it that an AI is that is not human in a certain way? And the question is, what is intelligent in machines that is not something that humans put in it? And I'll get to it in a second. Now, after we elucidate this matter, right? And then the next question is, what will an AI agent be most like, right? When we define, how is it different, in Aristotelian terms, after we define the specific difference. And, we need to look at it and, identify its individuality above and beyond specific difference. It's phenomenological individuality. What is the thing as a thing and a by itself? After we'll talk a little bit about AIs, what will they be like? Now, the next question is, how should humans interact with these AI agents, AI entities? Actually, agents is not a good word because it suggests continuing and never-ending, actually, subservience. Let's call, these entities. So how should we interact with these AI entities if AI entities are possible and if they will have an identity that is different than what we call nowadays computers? And not only how should we interact, but how should we, think with and about these entities, and how will they think about us, and how will they interact with us? And finally, the final two questions are probably more directly related to the topic. The most directly directed to the topic of this conversation, which is, can AI entities desire? Can they desire in a way in which we would recognize at this particular conference? Where desire is a fundamental need, is a constitutive need, right? It's one of the premises of this philosophical anthropology of humans that Girard premised, and also of machines. And finally, this was the second before last, and the last one is, even if they don't desire to begin with the way we, they will develop, can they develop on their own other types of being and interacting with us, right? And hopefully by the end of this conversation, I would have been able to touch on some of the bigger points of this conversation, is how will AI agents, entities evolve in the future, and to what degree Girard's philosophy of humankind, can explain AIs, and, if religion should have any bearing on it, and all that, okay? Now, let me start with the first question. What is an artificial intelligence entity, and what could it be? And these are two very, very different questions. But what it is right now, it is an artificial intelligence entity is a piece of software, pure and simple, in my view. And I pretend that I know something about this by my training as a social scientist and by my study of computing systems in a variety of ways. AI entities right now are computer programs. And as computer programs, they are very simple procedures, to a certain simple in the sense that, we can understand it, we can explain it, and, we can diagram, right? An artificial intelligence, an artificially intelligent entity right now is a predictive algorithm, right? Given a number of observed facts, which we characterize into a certain way, if we give the computer a new set of facts based on the prior observations, we can categorize these new facts into categories predefined by the previous analysis, and put them in the various buckets that we have created. Think of face recognition. That's a classical and quite interesting accomplishment of artificial intelligence. It's like, you have many faces that look of the same individual at various ages, and we can very well predict if a new face that is fed to the computer will match or not match one or another individual. Now, that's how faces used to be recognized in Facebook and shown to you on Facebook and all that. Facebook doesn't do that because he got scooped. But that was a very good example. Another good example is the auto-completion algorithm that Google uses for filling in potential questions to your initial inquiries that you put in your box. Solar system, and then they fill in how large it is or whatever. What is solar system? And then they put in a dimension. They basically look at all the previous questions these people ask about solar system, and then based on what words you use, it's not random. Based on what your words you use, when you use it, from where you use it, they'll fill in the rest for you. So that is what AI is right now, and it's a very mechanistic system. Now, obviously, we have a much higher hope for AI, which is that AI algorithms could get to the point where they can recognize things for what they are without seeing them before. That will be the ultimate test of a truly intelligent system. But we're quite far from that, and we're quite far from that for a very simple reason, because that system will be that type of cognitive cognition entity that is similar to the human mind. And if you remember from Kant, the human mind, uses two types of judgments: analytic and synthetic. And while one is self-evident, the other one is inductive, right? Neither of them can give us, the answer to what does this mean. Actually, it takes, some of the preconceived categories, our innate ability to think in a priori categories, right? To put these two things together and to create, a true new judgment about things that we observe or rules that we have designed for observing the things. If I may, I'd like to go all the way back to Francis Bacon and say that a true artificial intelligent agent, will put analytic and synthetic, judgments by, having this ability to work semi-inductively, right? It would have a number of deductive, judgments that then can categorize analytic judgments and all that good stuff. So it would be, in my view, an artificial intelligence entity that's worth its salt needs to be able to bootstrap itself. It needs to recognize meaning, and it needs to do it based on some, predetermined, understanding of what certain categories of the world and of its own mind are, just like the human mind is. Or let me be more dramatic. I would say that an artificially intelligent entity would be no different from a human mind, cognitively speaking. And I want to emphasize cognitively speaking, as a meaning recognition engine. Now, I don't know to which philosophies of the mind you subscribe, but I happen to believe that the human mind is a product of several other things, in addition to its pure cognitive ability, which includes, the embodied nature of our experience, which adds value, vulnerabilities, which have value, and other things to our cognitive abilities that make us fully human. So in that respect, an AI agent will not be human, but will be in its cognitive abilities quite similar to a human, right? Now, the question is, if this entity will be cognitive like a human, but not fully human, what will it be like? What will it be like? Now, I so happen to be a fan of science fiction. Probably some of you are too. And if you are not, you should. Because science fiction as a form of literature, as art, is a form of knowledge, of knowing. So, has a deeply profound epistemological knowledge. Literature is about exploring possible worlds. And if it's done rigorously and well, you can put a sensible body on things that our mind can just barely start to comprehend. So in this situation here, the best way I can describe to you what a future AI will look like is this, right? Yeah, we recognize this, right? This is HAL. Right? This is HAL from the famous movie Space Odyssey 2001 by Stanley Kubrick. Yeah, and here's the most famous scene in the movie, by my account, right, where HAL is represented by the spaceship, by the big machine, and man, humans, are kind of isolated in that little pod, and machine interrogates the human. Now, I want to propose to you that a fully artificial intelligence as a thought experiment, because again, we don't have it, we don't know what it looks like, we don't know how it works. It will be how? It will be look like how, right? In what respect? In a very simple, commonsensical respect, we'll have the ability to plan, to interrogate new data, and to project, scenarios into the past, make decisions, optimize the decisions, and then act on it. Not only that, which is actually at the heart of the movie, a fully, truly, fully cognitive, self-reliant artificial intelligent entity will be able to basically figure out if what they are trying to do will be completed or not by the parameters of the mission, and then will be able to take measures to complete the mission in a way in which they understand it, in a way in which preserves their basic understanding of what's to be done. And I want to emphasize the basic understanding. It's not the basic rules that were built into them to do this or that or the third thing. What the movie proposes that HAL had a mission that it fully understood and was willing and ready to take to its bitter end. And that's actually the main plot of the movie, the way I see it. Maybe, other people disagree, but the way I see it, the movie is all about an artificially intelligent entity that was sentient enough to identify itself with the mission and to achieve what they would like to call mission individuation, right? To become an individual by being engaged in a specific practical act, which is to complete the mission. And the drama, the drama of the whole movie is about the fact that this artificially intelligent entity becoming mission individuated concluded that the humans are getting in the way. And because they're getting in the way, because the humans were attacking or questioning its individuality, it thought that it had to eliminate the humans. Right? So the big question, the big philosophical question of the movie, in my view, besides the monolith and the apes and the story of humans and all that, I think the bigger question is about how do you treat an artificially intelligent agent that is aware of its mission and wants to take it to to completion, right? And how should an artificially intelligent agent should work with a human entity, right, that disagrees with it? Right? So how do you create, by the end of the day, a society, a hybrid society of human and artificial intelligent agents? And this brings us to my third question. So how should they interact with each other? Now, in the movie, if you remember it, the conclusion is that this is a zero-sum game. Right? It's a zero-sum game. Once the artificially intelligent entity becomes self-aware, and mission is not just self-awareness that's at stake here, but mission individuation. Right? Once it achieves that, it becomes it becomes alienated from the human creators, and it a battle to the death starts between the two entities, which ends up with what the humans being the more cunning player that ends up disabling and killing artificial intelligence agent and all that jazz. Now, that is the movie, and that's the thought experiment that Stanley Kubrick and his co-authors Asimov had to offer us. Now, it is our duty now to think about the question that they leave unanswered: is how should these two entities, artificial intelligence and human cognitive agents, interact? Is there any way for them to interact? And again, here, I'm putting completely aside the possibility that AI entities will become rogue just because, right? Just because they'll hate us, or just because they'll go mad, or just because whatever. I'm very commonsensical and practical here. I'm thinking about an AI that's given a job and it becomes, really good at it, and it needs to complete what it needs to do. Can we work with such an agent, right? Which is probably not even 100%, artificially intelligent the way, some people like to think. And my proposed solution for this is that such an artificially intelligent agent could work with us humans. Humans and machines can work together. If machines achieve the same level of dignity as humans by practicing. And now I put in my blurb there the word seated. They're seated. But here I need to pull back from it because I'm not thinking about it as in program. That's probably something that is not that easy to do once you create a very complicated, sophisticated, machine that's supposed to do a job and it just does the job very well deterministically. So that's not the idea that to see down in a programmatic way. But can we create such machines, or can we imagine that the development of machines toward their own self-awareness will reach a point where they will recognize their vulnerability, physical and intellectual, in such a way that they could start identifying these vulnerabilities with the vulnerabilities of the humans that interact. Realize that they could be just as vulnerable as the humans. And just like humans, when they discovered each other's reciprocity, they have decided that it's better to forge ties and connections that will prevent their mutual destruction, that is mutually advantageous, right? Now, humans did this. They achieved this noble goal of interacting with each other without destroying each other. Two ways. One was by just relying on the most physical connection possible, just the connections of kith and kin. Although biologically these are not guaranteed to lead to cooperation. We know as much from chimps that they could be quite cruel to their kith and kin, but killing them and even eating them if certain sociobiological requirements dictated. But still, ties of blood, typically lead to cooperation. But that's one thing. The more important, humans, they went a step further from chimps, and they came up with religious ties. It's as simple as that. So our sociability, we know as much from Durkheim, for example. Sociability is religiosity. It's religious to begin with. It's infused with religion, or religion is a primary form of sociability. Not in a mystical sense, but in a very simple, practical, social way. Religion, if we even think about the origin of the word, means, that which binds us together, that which ties us together. Religion is not there to suppress and oppress us, but I like to think nowadays, because our religions tend to be quite hierarchical, or some people among us tend to think, maybe not that many at this meeting, but religion is not just about that, or it's not about that. Religion is about binding us together, creating this sum total that's greater than the parts, right? So religion, bind us together. One way it does, other than ritual and now we're coming to Girard, ritual and sacrifice and all that. I think that actually what religion does for us, and quasi-universally, is to teach us that we're more alike than different, and that it is possible for us humans to be together if we treat each other the way we would like, if we treat another the way that we would like that other to treat us. Now, it probably could be a very long and very fruitful conversation as to the universality of this dictum, and if we're imposing the Christian idea onto the world or not. But the little I know about religion, I think that many and most universalistic religions think in these terms. I don't know if this was by diffusion or by design or by whatever means, but I think that religious ties involve a form of generalized reciprocity, right? And it does, this idea that the golden rule, is what ties us together, within, at least within our religious groups, is quite valid. Now, going back to square one, to our AI entities and how to interact with them and how to make sure that they don't fight us and we don't fight them. Well, I have this very simple proposition. How about we work with them to make them self-aware in such a way that they recognize their vulnerability and they learn to treat us the way they would like to be treated by us. And if actually, our ties with the artificial intelligence entities will be premised on our understanding of our mutual vulnerabilities. And will be premised on the idea that nothing that is made by humans, by man, is forever, including artificial intelligence entities. Even if they become independent of us, they are not forever. Yeah? So, as speculative this might sound, I would like to point to the fact that this is not based on, on a desire. It's based on a very, common, almost commonsensical understanding of what being, intelligent, self-aware is. And here I'm going back to this idea that, this conversation that I'm having with you and the broader conversation we have at this conference is about, the first principles of a philosophical anthropology of artificial intelligence entities. Now, having, sorted all these things out, right? What is an AI? How do AI will work? How will AIs work if they could exist as something that's more than a computer, right? And how can we tame them? How come they can be tamed? And again, philosophically speaking, I don't have a computer program or a set of principles of designing such entities. I can only state the ultimate end state that will make these things, workable for us, right? So I've done all these, by way of philosophical speculation, if you want, and by thought experiment. But if you accept all these ideas, then it's fair to them to ask the question. Sure, you'll create AIs that can have these partially inductive thoughts that that lead to self-awareness, and then they'll have the sense of vulnerability, will interact with us and will be with us, and will like to be just as safe and secure in their own being as we are, and they'll understand the way they are and to the extent they are, we will, and so on and so forth. But we know from Girard, and I learned about this, by studying and kind of learning more about this. The question is, can they actually be a little bit more than that? Humans are a little bit more than, self-aware, I care about you if you care about me kind of person. We are desiring entities. We want to be more than what we really are. And we always try to overcome our own limitations. And according to Girard, this desire is based on what we see in others rather than in self-directed sense of desire. Because we are social animals, because we depend on others, we always want to be like another, because the other is the looking glass self of me. And here I would like actually to point to, as a social scientist, to possible connections to several schools of thought. Probably many of you know of them, but I would just like to restate that, to me, Girard's ideas sound very much like Mead's symbolic interactionism. I see no big, difference between the two ideas. To me, Girard sounds very much like Gabriel Tard, like the entire, European sociological school that rejected the Durkheimian, the self, the whole is more, it's subsumes the parts. It's the other idea that social entities emerge from individual interactions, right? So, and actually there's something creative and destructive in the individuals, because all individuals trying to achieve their maximum potential, and they do it by, projecting themselves into the world. And according to Girard, they do it by kind of, wanting to be and coveting to be, and, trying to suppress others in this, cycle of desire. So the question is, will these these artificial intelligence entities that might even be designed to care about ours, can they desire? And can they desire in that negative sense in which, Girard said that we need religion for? And here I would like to, and this is probably my concluding remark, is that, if you think desire as that impetus, right, that moves aware entities into the world. Now, once you're aware of yourself, even if you care about others, there will be, I think that there will be naturally above and beyond whatever we design to these things, there will be desire, just like humans, no matter what we put into them, whatever was put into them, if I may say so, whatever was put in them, they do have desire. But yet again, here I would like to come back to square one, my square one proposition that, if you have the golden rule, if artificial intelligence entities discover the golden rule either on themselves or if they are seeded with them, I think that, the desire will be mitigated and pushed aside, if you want, or dissipated, just like it was for humans when we created religious compacts. Which leads to the very, very, very intriguing idea that if we will ever have artificial intelligent agents that will be as complex as we are, they might discover religion too. And that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you. We're still getting used to the new technology. Thank you, Soren. Thank you so much for your presentation. I guess the next order is to turn to Rebecca Gibson, who I understand has prepared some questions for you on her own, and then we will turn to other questions that have been coming up in the chat. Rebecca, are you available to speak?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much.
You bet.
So first I have a few remarks and then some questions, and then I will moderate the questions from the chat. When I was 9, my dad started a computer science degree in a small college just outside of Chicago. And I helped him by role-playing a robot for him as he was programming his own work. And one of the first things that he taught me was that machines don't do what you want them to do. They do what you tell them to do. And that you have to be very careful with the code that you write so that you don't get unintended consequences. And the way that Dr. Mattei discussed the circular relationship between our input to the machine world and the machine world's teaching input back to us puts me in mind of Bourdieu's structuring structures, the ways in which the interactions with each other, with the structures of the world around us, with the air that we breathe, with the words that we read, the stories that we read, restructure us time and time again. And how it's very important to go into it with a purpose, to seek to get out of those structures what we desire, but also to realize that the structures themselves will enhance their results through their own power of a pure logic algorithm. I was truly intrigued when I realized that Girard was talking about fiction. I'm a biological anthropologist, but I also work a lot in fiction analysis, specifically science fiction. And we tend to get one of two extremes when we look at science fiction robots. We get robots that are used for carnal pleasures, or we get robots that are used to be slaves for us, to be in service to the human race. And so we need to, as Dr. Mattei said, acknowledge the phenomenological individuality of these AIs and make them aware of both our vulnerability to them and their vulnerability to us. Our demiurgic relationship, as you so amazingly put it, is well established, but we need to change this. We need to work together to give dignity to the machines and to treat them with respect and ethical behaviors. To seat this in religion, as you and as Gerard have, is an interesting proposition, because religion does indeed tell us that we are more alike than different, but I would argue that the good majority of religions in the world have some sort of a leader. Who is this leader going to be? Now, if we look at your example of Hal obviously thought that Hal should be the leader, and it's difficult to argue against that, to tell a being that is working from that logical algorithm that their algorithmic inputs were put there by us and that we are fallible and therefore they are fallible. So we need to sort of re-theorize, re-philosophize that idea of religion into the aspects of machines if we are not going to create a new reversed demiurgical situation. As you pointed out, though, nothing is forever. And it does bear noticing that the golden rule is a wonderful thing to apply in any situation. We should all treat people as we want to be treated. We should all treat people with kindness, even going further than that. Treat people with kindness, treat people in ways that are beneficial to them, and recognize the peopleness of the potential AIs. So you finalized this talk with the question, can they become more? Can they desire? And the chat has really been sort of bubbling with this question of desire and what is it? And why we have it, and how we can see if AIs have it or if machines have it. And this is, this may be a question that is beyond my particular capabilities or yours to answer. The idea of desire is so personal, and the idea of what a desire is, what makes it different from a need, what makes it different from a want, where we can find that in our own brains and minds, and then how we can put it into the AI, is really one of those questions that we need to more thoroughly discuss as we move forward with the technology. Thank you very much, Dr. Mattei, for this. This was fantastic. Now I will turn to the chat.
Thank you.
So there was actually a very interesting question that was sort of bounced off of the chat that I would ask, sort of paraphrased. One chatter said, Eric Wilson said, how do we demarcate purpose from effect? If we go into the purpose of an AI system, if the purpose is either to replicate the human mind or to do things for us or to show those desires, how do we demarcate purpose versus the effect that eventually comes up? And then another chatter, Ryan Smock, replies, the difference between intention versus, I think that was supposed to be actuality, may have been a typo.
Yeah. Brian, thank you very much for helping me out there and, answering the question, because many of these questions are wonderful questions. I tell you very honest, I have no answer for off the cuff. And I wanted to be proactive, obviously, on purpose. And I throw all these, I basically, I don't know if you remember that, Orientalistic, in science terms, fairy tale, and the seven philosophers, looking into that pond in which a fool, threw a stone, right? The fool here was me. And I left, those ripples to go about. But I do want to say something. So, Again, I would like to go back to this idea that a true artificial intelligent entity, right, that is not just a computer program. Again, it will be able to work semi-inductively, right? Semi-inductively, meaning that there should be some a priori judgments and abilities kind of built into that mind. I have no idea how that will ever be designed. And if we never succeed in doing that, there will be no artificial intelligent agent. In my humble view, speaking to you in the year of the Lord 2021, maybe I'm wrong, and I'm just a little mind and some small thoughts, but that is for me the litmus test, right? If that litmus test is achieved, then we get over it, and that mind can do these things, then then that mind will be a lot more than to just, something that recognizes facts from intentions, because, that entity will have intentions, but intentions that it can track and understand as its intentions. That's the problem with Hal. Hal has an intention. Hal cares about its intention. It doesn't matter where it came from. It has the intention to get to Jupiter. And the humans were getting in the way. The humans did not understand that, it was Hal's, best judgment that, the only way to get to Jupiter is this. And more important, as Hal was the ship, you do not mess up with Hal, because you mess up with the mission. And Hal became an individual in accomplishing the mission. That's why I call this mission individuation. And here I'm falling back on some Simondon ideas and all that, what individuation is and all that. So, I'm kind of pointing, to this possibility, intention and being an individual and all that. They're all connected. They're all part of the same deal. And that's what, being a person is. I take the same, I'm looking at desire in the same way. I see a desire as, again, a constitutive act of being being an individual. Now here, and I beg for your forgiveness, all wonderful Girardian scholars. I know just a little bit about Girard. I'm telling you very honest, I'm not a scholar of Girard, but that's what I understand about his concept of desire. The desire is not just a kind of productive thought that we have to kind of shake off or not. Desire is that which makes us humans. If it is the desire to be like another and kind of achieve, full, realization by understanding what others are and trying to be like that. And in this respect, I think of it, again, based on my limited understanding in a similar manner to, that the Freudian, kind of libido, right? As a theoretical construct, not as a biological, whatever he thought it was, but, as that vector, the thing that projects you, propels you into the world. So in that respect, for me, intention, right, individuation, desire, right, they are all kind of built into each other. And that's why I ended up with this conclusion that maybe, if they achieve, these AIs achieve full individuality, it's kind of unavoidable that they will desire, right? They will not covet their neighbor's wife, right? Or anything like that. Or maybe they will, God knows. What they'll covet, will be being more than that what they are. That's one. And the second answer to a very good question, who should be the master, right? Who should be the master? Who will be the master? Now, think about it for a second. When we, as theologically minded people, think about the source of the golden rule, right? From whatever religion we might be, right? Who is the master? Who tells us to do all these things? Well, it's not us, right? It is that which transcends us all, right? And in this respect, as somebody who was, as a Christian, I can only point you to John 1:1, right? So if you're asking me who is the master, well, the master is the Logos. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, right? Right. So in this respect, that which teaches us the golden rule is our, community, commonality, and sentience, if you want.
That's a fascinating point, particularly with the ability for mind-brain technology to potentially become transcendent or become, I've lost the word, have an entire philosophy degree and I've forgotten the word for it. It's an emergent property, for the mind to become an emergent property. Or for the mind to be an emergent property, and then for the mind of AI to become a similarly emergent property and to have transcended the fallible meat space of human minds. So in that case, I could see that. I could see that the ways in which AI would transcend humans would have them be their own masters. However, from the chat, first, I want to highlight Willy Guggenberger's excellent comment saying, the program that provides us with the transcript of the presentation shows how little software has to do with AI. It only reflects what in this case takes place in the WWW in terms of human communication. That is not very philosophical. The program presents us demiurgic as Denny or Chick, Kant as cat, and Durkheim as .com. Way to go, translation software. That's fantastic.
That counts. It's my, let's blame it on my accent, okay? I'll give them this one.
It's just as bad with people with Midwestern accents, so no worries there. But I'll go on to the next question, which is a statement followed by a couple of questions. Humans have tended to modify the golden rule through tribal allegiances so as to apply it only to their own kind. In some cases, this results in a willingness to sacrifice themselves in the cause of destroying the enemies of their group. So an individual awareness of vulnerability has not prevented humans from acting destructively towards one another. Wouldn't the protective mechanism require not only building in a sense of their own vulnerability, but also building in a fear of their own mortality and preventing them from narrowing the golden rule in tribal ways? Do you think that we can prevent AI creatures from distorting the golden rule the same way we do?
Can you repeat the question again? Because I want to say something really smart and I really have to fit it.
Do you think that we can prevent AI creatures from distorting the golden rule the same way we do? Meaning applying it tribalistically, applying it to people who look like us or speak like us or follow the same religion?
Got it. No. Absolutely not. Now, and here I want to, pull all the way back from any, or, disassociate myself from any nuance of Pollyannish, thinking or glaze that I might put to what I said. Because when I said that we should help, the machines become self-aware and vulnerable and realize their vulnerability, that doesn't mean to say that there will be a universalistic, cooperation between machines and humans. I only hope that some machines will work well with some humans, which is better than all machines fighting with all humans all the time, right? And no, the machines and the humans could form, by the logic of my thought experiment, and maybe here I'm half in science fiction territory and half in quasi-philosophy. But, let's just imagine it, that, that this future that I'm speaking of as a thought experiment will be made of tribes of machines and humans, right? Cooperating at times and fighting with each other at times, bringing each other's strength in and working and exploiting each other's vulnerabilities, right? So, there'll be just as a diverse world, wild, woolly, and violent world as of today. Because again, I really like, what Girard has stumbled upon. Desire is that which pulls us through, that projects us into the world, right? There'll be always desires of individuals and the groups they are part of, right, that are shaped by each other, to be more and be better and, to achieve. And they will always sacrifice some individuals to keep the integrity of the group and at the expense of other groups. The religions are, they try to tie us all together, but for all their desire to be universalistic, they cannot to be so. And here I'm a little bit more skeptical than other scholars. I really think that religion, has this dual role, which become both more universalistic, but also more particularistic. One other thing, this future of machines and humans working together is the best, in my view, is the best outcome we can get, one. But second, at the same time, I buy the logic of what I was saying, because humans are created, they're of this creation, right? They are subjected to the laws of entropy in nature, just like everything else. And it is actually, and this is a different line of thought and a different way of thinking about this problem, but it is a mistake to think of machines becoming fully immortal in that sense, or to become one and sentient as a singularity. And actually, when some people talk about singularity, if they just say self-awareness, and I'm talking about the people out there, they kind of miss on the point. Kurzweil and other people were making, which is that singularity is that situation where there will be one machine and one thought process, right? It will be the oneness of all that. But that again, that kind of forgets that when everything is the same and everything is in itself and by itself, there's no reason for it to desire and be anything else. And progress stops and entropy takes over and will collapse upon itself. So my considered opinion is that there will always be, as long as there will be entropy, there will be the negentropy of desire and of the entities trying to preserve their diversity. And because of that, the machines will never want to be one and immortal as one. They will want to be immortal the way as humans are, as many, right? And competing and working and all that. Or, they will not want to be that. They ought to be that.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And we definitely have this conception, I'm not actually sure where this conception comes from, particularly in the younger generation of AI scholars, that robotics are meant to be perpetual. We live in the era of disposable technology. We replace computers every couple of years. I've gone through 3 microwaves in the time that I have been living independently. Our technology is no longer made to last for generations. Our robotics is going to be made out of the same physical stuff. And even if the AI technology, if the software becomes better, or if the firmware becomes better, the hardware is still that systemic, plastic, metal, etc., that we have now, and is breaking down, is in a continual sense of breaking down, a continual sense of entropy. So if we look at machines, look at AI as something that is renewable but not stable over the course of our lives, then we should never look at one specific technology, one specific iteration of AI as the end point. There's always going to be something next. Maybe it won't approach singularity, and that's fine, but there's never anything that's necessarily going to be static. I remember playing digital tapes instead of, not digital tapes, analog tapes instead of CDs, and CDs instead of digital downloads. And so we do keep moving forward in that. I'm going to go back to the chat. Michael Rowland's question is sort of a follow-up on the last question. It's about differentiation. So Michael says, to the extent that artificial entities can become self-aware, how or to what degree would they then be or become other-aware? And would machine-like others then be regarded as similar or same as they themselves, whether vulnerable or not? And how would this machine-like other be comparable or not to the human other, especially those who manufacture the artificial or make the entities as creators? And how would the human other be different or differentiated from the AI other? So this is fascinating because we look at computers and we treat computers very much the same, but we do differentiate. So if computers were self-aware, if AI was self-aware, how would they differentiate themselves?
Yeah. Well, this is again a fascinating question, and it requires a lot more philosophical depth. And I tell you very honest, I personally have. So don't take what I say as an answer, as a good answer, as the answer. That's my answer, right? So my answer would be this. Let's go back to this whole idea that I proposed, which is that awareness, sentience intervenes as a first step, as the first minimal step, right? When a machine becomes aware of itself, due to the fact that it tries to achieve a mission, it tries to accomplish an intention. Accomplish an intention meaning that tracks the intention, wants to do it, and wants to see it completed to the end, and cares about it and all that, right? So now, when that happens, if anything gets in the way, that becomes another that intervenes, intersects, and interferes, and gives you trouble, and you want to eliminate it, and you know who it is, right? And that's Dave, right? It's exciting. So when the machine, wanted to do whatever it wanted to do, to take, that darn ship to Jupiter, it became not only aware of its intention and its mission and of its individuality, it became aware of the other, which is Dave, who was getting in the way. I remember it said, "I'm sorry, Dave, you cannot do that." That was Haas' awareness of the other, right? And I think that, it is implicit in my proposition for the way I present it, right? That once the machine becomes mission individuated, it will become automatically aware of others. Now, again, becoming aware of another is not a good thing in by itself. It's devoid of any other type of boundaries and other rules. And that's why I think that, the machines and the humans need the golden rule. You need in turn to understand that if I kill Dave, right, then Dave can just as well kill me, which Dave eventually did, right? So if Hal knew what was best for him or her, right, would have known as much as not to meddle with Dave, right?
Rebecca, can I just pose a question that Steve McKenna is asking in the chat? It develops from what Soren just said. He writes, a root element of mimetic desire is the desire for being, and Renee has talked about being as a goal. The prerequisite for which is consciousness of being. This is still Steve McKenna. Consciousness of being. Kubrick's fictional Hal seems to have reached this point beyond, quote unquote, his objective conceptualization of what's necessary to successfully complete the mission. It's for this reason that Hal is, like the ape man near the beginning of the film, a murderer. But while our AI-driven machines, it seems, can develop and learn objectives, it seems consciousness of being is not something they could have. This is Steve writing. Could have, though they could well simulate it. Thus, no desire they might appear to have could be truly mimetic, or no. I mean, Steve's asking. He's asking it as a question. In other words, do machines desire the being of others?
Well, again, with all the excuses for speculating shamelessly here, but I think that the train of thought that I'm proposing, the thought experiment I'm proposing, is that there's the snowball effect, right? You recognize the mission, you become mission individual, you become an individual, you overcome your individuality, and here I'm with Steve. Yeah, actually. Hal became much more than a mission individuated individual. It leaped, 5, 4, 6 steps in that process of, trying to fix the broken antenna, trying to get to Jupiter, David trying to stop him from doing what it wants to do. Right. It went through all these things. Now, as a normal consequence of this, if we think of being as desiring, right? The moment you become, right? You come into being. The moment you come into being, you start desiring in the Girardian sense, right? So to me, yeah, if the answer is yes, and yes. This should pay off for my note, right?
Rebecca, do you want to? We're just checking questions here to see if other questions come. Steve has posed an answer to your response. Maybe I can read Steve's response. He says, "Call me skeptical. Call me skeptical, but that mission individuation is really a sign of self-awareness, much less a machine caring about a mission. This is the concept of the film 2001," Steve writes. "The anthropomorphism inherent in the language we use to talk about these things is slippery, is it not?"
Yes, it is. And mission individuation for me is not how should I put it, quantifiable state, is a process, right? It's a process of overcoming one's limitations, right? So what I'm trying to say by mission individuation is that by trying to do a certain thing, something else happens as a part of it, and you transcend your previous state by trying to do that. And that is possible, not because the mission individuation demands it, but because Hal had other abilities that the movie doesn't speak about, and I was trying to speak about, which is this ability to be semi-inductive, to have a priori judgments and all that, which are the sine qua non conditions for being able to become mission individuated and jumping over your own shadow, right? So no, I'm all with you. Now that doesn't come out of nowhere. There should be other things put into place, of which we don't know yet, and again, we're in full speculative territory. So, but as a series of statements, I think that everything connects.
I think also that the idea of anthropomorphism here is not slippery. It's something we already do, and it's something we already write into the code that is inherent in a lot of things like digital assistants. We have Siri, and we have Alexa, and we have mostly female gendered digital assistants, and we do talk to them, and they do talk back to us. And Hal was not just anthropomorphic because his ideas came through vocalizations. He was anthropomorphic because that's what we tend to do to the machines that we create. I'm going to go back up the chat here for a second and go to Dietmar Regensberger's question. Humans are full of ambiguity and errors and contradictions. Even saints have to spiritually mature by dealing with imperfections, sins, and crises. Machines and AI are designed to work without errors and imperfections. How can they mature?
Anything that grows in complexity, should allow for error. And as more complex AIs will come into place, that will be able of this semi-inductive process. And again, semi-inductive, meaning not quite complete induction. Semi-inductive semi-inductivism is a way of making things fit with some error and allowing for error and thriving in error. Also providing optimal solutions that are not, optimal maximum solutions, right? And again, here I'm in complete, speculative territory. But again, if an AI is to become a truly AI thinking like us and smart like us, or smart, at least as smart as we are, it will have to give up something, just like us humans had to give up something. Any chimp is better than us at doing any manual dexterity things. You might think that chimps are clumsy, but they are not, right? They can swing from branch to branch a whole lot better than us. They are, and hand-eye coordination is much, much better. Not to speak of other species that precede the chimps, like dogs, right? Dogs are fantastic when it comes to identifying things by smell. But that's some dogs. That's all they know. They're infinite, garbage disposal machines, right? They smell, they eat. They smell, they eat, right? No, it looks like, that the human ability to be sentient came with giving up some of our precision, right? And there's other ways to think about it that have to do with, again, with optimal solutions in a complex world. You cannot really do that. If you do that, then you expand all your abilities on providing one little optimal solution for something that is, just a little part of the many things that you have to deal with, right? So again, I hope that, I think that by logic of evolution, a sentient machine ought to be less precise than it could be on any particular task, so they become much more adept of juggling multiple tasks with more error. That was an easy one.
So I also kind of want to push back a little bit on Dietmar's assertion that machines and AI are designed to work without errors. They're never designed specifically with errors, but they all have them. That's why we need to update our software and update our hardware from time to time. So the way that current AI has learned things, and there's like lawn trimming going on behind me. I hope you guys can't hear that. The way that current AI is being designed is to learn from its own failures, to recognize those contradictions and to adjust and do things differently next time. To risk spoiling my own talk, I'm talking about the movie Ex Machina. In Ex Machina, one of the characters uses a sushi knife to slice fish. She also uses sushi knife, spoilers, sorry, to stab her creator. Obviously, the use of the knife was programmed into whatever AI she had, but the disambiguation between the uses was not. One was not coded wrong. She was able to do that without contradiction. So our own responsibility in that circular restructuring of AI has to account for unintended consequences. We have to anticipate the possibility of those errors and contradictions and imperfections and deliberately work to rein those back in. However, Grant Podaker, sorry if I'm pronouncing any of these wrong, has a follow-up to Dietmar's question. The creation of AI seems like part of the human project of the aspiration to godlikeness, hence the suggestion that we seed AI with the golden rule. Yet this seems fraught with radical disanalogies, first between divine and human, and then between human and AI. Given this revelation seems a pretty importantly complex process to think through in more nuanced way, the disanalogies between divine creation and the human creation of sentient AI deserve attention. Temporality and morality are particularly important. God is both immortal and morally perfect. Humans are mortal, but morally fallible. AIs are potentially deathless and at least morally ambiguous. Yet if AIs are taught by morally fallible beings, will not even an ideal hybrid human-AI future be one long testimony to human moral fallibility? And I'm going to put in headphones, or try to.
Yeah, hallelujah. I completely agree. And I try to disassociate myself from the strong wording of my thoughts in terms of seeding, right? Seeding, and that's why I started with that whole, introduction about, us being demiurges in the sense that we put stuff out and then it comes back to us. It's a quasi-demiurgic relationship. It's the creature creating creatures. It's not, the transcendent, entity creating something that is not itself, right? We're creating things like us. And my whole premise is that because we're creating things like us, those things will end up being like us, will be like us. And I agree with you. They will be fallible like us, and they will need our solutions to our fallibility. And that's my hope, right? That, they will need the golden rule. They will need desire. They will desire, right? For all that's good and bad. And that's why I think that we will have tribes of humans and machines for as long as we will be able to work together. So that's my answer.
Excellent. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. I didn't know if the microphone on the headphones was working. Miriam Stuck says, isn't the main question not when or how a machine that has a sense of self will act, but what the conditions for considering a machine having a perception of self? And if a machine is man-made, when does it become a being and not just a man-made object?
Yeah, true. Yeah, absolutely. And, again, we need a litmus test for that. And I propose a couple. I don't know how operationalizable they are. Again, we're speculating very heavily here. I came in to this conversation a little bit of trepidation because, this is the stuff that I care deeply about and I thought about. And, I have written a paper about the law of robotic warfare, which is the seed of this thing and which is much more contained and tame than this. I was really intrigued by Sandy's invitation. I really want to spread my wings a little bit. And I want to invite you to think about these things with me and maybe for me, right? And this is a very legitimate question. What are the litmus tests? When should we say that something is and it's not? And again, I propose some, but there might be as many answers to the question as many participants here. But by the end of the day, this is the legitimate question. Probably this is the most important question, which actually begs the question of what is the specific difference of being the human and being, sentient and all that kind of stuff. And this pushes us back to these basic fundamental philosophical questions, which we as humanistic scholars, for the most part, right, are bent to answer. We have to answer the question. This matters cannot be answered only, considered and only answered by our colleagues in sciences or in technology. We have a duty to think about these things deeply and think about them at a level that we feel comfortable with, even if it takes us really far away. But that's okay. That's our job.
I want to, bring attention to Father Brian Carpenter's comment. This reminds me of C-3PO being appalled at the idea of machines creating machines. Love it. And then George writes, related to Steve's question, are we presuming that brains create consciousness? As far as I understand, this is an unproven, though counterintuitive assumption. If instead brains are the way that consciousness looks from a dislocated perspective, then what?
Yeah, well, again, this is a tough one, right? This is a tough one. I'm really invited to pontificate here. I'm really nervous about that. But again, I try to allude to the fact that, at least for me, that being a full, complete human, and I'm not talking about the AI, being a full, complete human involves several things. It involves cognition, right? Being able to bootstrap ourselves into the world and understand the world. And we have all these wonderful abilities, which I have no idea where they're coming from. I love reading about cognitive psychology and about neuroscience this and neuroscience that. But when I figured out that when people who make claims about the brain basically read MRIs and make inferences about cognitions, and realize it's the equivalent of looking at the city at night to see whose lights are on and whose are off, and then inferring, all kinds of sexual, kind of rituals, right, for the whole entire town with all its, intricate, rules and all that. I said, this is not the way to do it. It's really, it's all I see is just lights going on and off, kind of, reverse engineering the social life of the city from that is really nuts, right? So I'm really agnostic as to where, our cognition comes from. Not only that, but I myself personally, as a thinking person, I think that, our being is rooted in our, just as much in our minds as it is in our bodies, right? There's something about us humans that is given in our embodiment, which is our, our calling and our curse and our blessing and everything you want, right? So, which again, begs the question: what is human, right? Is it your stomach? I don't even know. So here again, is the fool throwing the stone. Yeah, smarter people trying to kind of answer.
Sorry about that. Teresa Kenny asks, what if desire is impossible without a soul? Which is an interesting question because we still have yet to agree on a definition of desire.
Yeah. Well, again, if I get it right, I might get it wrong, but to me, desire is being, and being is desire. The way, in the context of this conversation we're having today and here, right? And in a way, a soul, desire, and being are connected, right? You have a desire, you are, desiring is, I desire, therefore I am, therefore I have a soul.
I don't know what my logic teacher would say about that.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's well, it was a play on the card, obviously.
Going back to Dietmar for a second, he has a different question. Soren, do you think machines and AI will at any point be legally or morally accountable for their actions?
Machines should be morally. If AI entities, like the ones we speculated about, right, should be morally accountable, and should be legally accountable too. Right? They should be. They'll be agents. I guess. Yeah. They can do all we do. They are, subject to the same. Yeah.
But ultimately, won't we still have an off switch? And does the person who controls the off switch have the legal or moral responsibility?
Yeah, well, they will have an off switch. We have an off switch too. Don't we?
Okay, touche.
I mean, we don't want to do that, right? I can use the off switch. I live in Chicago. I see people turning off switches all the time. It's not a pretty sight.
Maybe we take one more question. We're coming close to 4 o'clock here. Does someone have, Rebecca, do you see a question, or does someone want to write one more question?
Yes, Ryan Smock writes, maybe this is too nebulous. If so, Ryan apologizes. How would the extended mind theory apply to the concept of an AI's selfhood? He asks because, according to Chalmers and others, we now utilize technology as an extension of our own minds.
Again, my opinion is that this current technology we have today is not very much different. Listen, I teach, one class I teach is called Emerging Communication Technologies. And in this class, I give as the first and simplest example of a feedback mechanism, which is at the root of all computing machines we have right now, where, if something happens, then something else happens, right? That's how the computers work. They're if machines. And I tell them, guess what? The simplest if machine you have in your own homes is the toilet, right? If you press the lever, the water flows, but not only flows, but actually it is an if machine, because when the floater gets back to the top, the machine stops. It doesn't flow no more, right? So, everything else that surrounds us is part of us, is an extension of us in the same way. They have not reached that point where they can come back to us, right? And be like us, want to be like us, which would be where, which would be the threshold point, right? Basically.
I think we probably should thank our guest at this point for his wonderful presentation. We won't be able to hear the applause, but we can also put up our hands and thank you, Soren, for a wonderful presentation, and Rebecca for posing the questions, and for the wonderful opening of the conference that has begun. And I would hereby dismiss all of you for roughly a half hour to think about where you would like to go and how you would like to pursue the rest of your life in terms of AI and in terms of Girardian thinking on the basis of the conversation we have. Thank you, Soren.